All right, guys, we're back. There was a little interruption in the internet connection. So we had just finished talking about the Trump impeachment situation. Now we're going to go to the topic of the day, which is socialism versus capitalism. And we're about to define our terms. So socialism, capitalism.
Capitalism, the idea that the person who takes the risk, the person with the idea of a business, the one who's willing to sweat it, gets to keep the profit. That's basically the idea. Abraham Lincoln talked about how the person who works hard and raises the corn gets to put that corn in his own mouth.
Right.
That's a great, and it kind of paints a nice picture, because socialism is the other way around. Socialism is the forced taking of the corn from the guy who raised it to put it in someone else's mouth that didn't raise it.
Right.
It is the government stepping in to say, I'm going to force you to be generous. Wait, it's not generosity anymore if you're forcing me to give it to the least fortunate, to someone who doesn't have it. And so it is socialism. I mean, yeah, socialism I would define as a forced, the government cloaking themselves in generosity or virtue. That's the reason that's propelling them. That taking money from the one who makes the money and works hard for it and giving it to those who do not have it. And with that, the problem with that is that it creates not generosity and gratitude. Like for example, if you were hungry and I gave you something to eat, it would make me feel all nice inside, right? Oh man, I just did something good. And inside you, it would create some gratitude, hopefully. But when I didn't volunteer to give you whatever I gave you, and the government comes and forces me to do it now, I mean, the same result ended up, right? I have less of what I have now. You have what he took from me to get to you.
Right.
But you're not grateful.
So in a sense, it's forced altruism. It's forced.
I would put altruism in quotes, because the altruism is not real. It's disguised as altruism. If it was truly altruism, what I would feel is some kind of generous. I feel good about myself. Right. Now I feel mad because I just worked my butt off, and the guy who didn't work just got what I worked for. And what it raises in me is this sense of, wait, that's not fair. And what it raises in you is, yeah, I'm entitled to this. Give me more.
So in terms of the economy itself, let's relate what socialism is to the economy. In other words, what it is basically the government control of the means of production. Right? Is that when the government controls? Let's get to it. I mean, we might as well get to it. The healthcare, our healthcare system, as an example, is right now in private hands.
That's a perfect example
for the most part, right?
Yeah.
In other words, doctors are allowed to perform to do their job for profit. Yes. Hospitals are basically for profit. Pharmaceuticals for profit, and you can make a case to me about whether that is good or bad, or whether the status quo in that sector is good or bad. But it's more or less in the private hands. I mean, there's
yes.
still a mixture of government
sure.
in that sector, but the means of production are in the private sphere. The government doesn't control it. If we were truly in a pure socialistic society, the government would control the entire healthcare system, kind of like they do in Britain, for example, where they have NHS, where the government is in control of their healthcare system. So,
but when it comes to this issue of healthcare or education, people asking for free healthcare, asking for or demanding free education, it comes down to a question of what does it mean to have the right to healthcare or the right to education. So what is a right? Right is something that is that travels with your person, right? It's something that is given rise the moment you are born, and it's something that goes away the moment you die. And it never, importantly, it never impedes someone else's right. So, for example, you have the right to talk, but I don't have the obligation to listen.
Right.
Your right is something that is only you. You have the right to breathe. You have the right to vote. But because you have the right to vote doesn't mean that I don't, or that I have to vote the way you do. It never tramples on someone else's right. And that's how we define a right in the American sense, in our sense here. So why is it then that healthcare, for example, is not a right? And this is a debate that I went through even in medical school as I'm thinking about, why am I even here? When I went to medical school, I had a calling since I was 5 years old. My mom says I was 5 years old when I used to say that I was going to be a doctor. What was it in me? Well, it's the sense of service. It's the sense that I want to give to my community. It's the sense that, I want to be challenged intellectually, kind of like the show House. That really smart doctor who wasn't very good in bedside manners, but he was real smart. And so some people go into medicine because of just the intellectual challenge. Well, for me, it was a little bit of both. But why is healthcare not a right? Because the moment it becomes a right for you to receive my services, then what that means is that the government, a third person, comes into this mix
with a gun
to force me to give you the health care. Wait a minute, I went to med school so that someone could force me to work? There's a word for that, isn't it? It's called slavery. Socialism is when you force me to give you something, that is slavery. And yet you don't see any millennial, even the millennials that are adopting socialism. No, you don't see any political party out there embracing the return of slavery, because it was terrible. It was diabolical, and everyone agrees with that. And yet the embracing of socialism is a kind of embracing slavery and trying to call for that to be reestablished, because socialism is forcing one person to work, and then taking the fruit of that person's labor and giving it to someone else.
So what you've just made is the moral case, the moral case for why socialism is not a preferable system. What does the economic case look like? So I heard Ben Shapiro put it pretty nicely, is you can declare your rights all day long, right? In Africa, they've declared their right to healthcare since day one, right? It doesn't make more doctors. Declaring things rights don't make things come into being, right? Declaring a right didn't make more doctors. It didn't make more hospitals. It didn't make more medicine more plentiful. It's just some people saying they have a right to healthcare, right?
And now what?
Now what? What
Right.
creates more doctors? What creates more medicine? What creates more hospitals is the free market. Is people getting into those industries, obviously to help other people, but because there's an incentive also.
Exactly.
To do so.
You mentioned the word. It's the issue is incentive. And that reminds me of the very first time socialism appeared in the New World, that is here in the United States, what's now known as the United States. It was actually in the 1600s, right after the Pilgrims got here. Their leader was Governor William Bradford. They had agreed, reluctantly, but they had agreed even before they left the old world, that when they arrived, they would embrace this idea that Karl Marx centuries later phrased, from everyone according to his ability to everyone according to his need. Right? So when they got here, first of all, they arrived in the winter. It was a terrible winter. They almost lost a whole bunch of people. 102 people were on the Mayflower. Few of them died during that winter. It was terrible. And so for the first 2 years, their idea of socialism, they didn't call it that then, but basically the products of the entire community had to go into a central pot. And then the governor had to distributed according to the needs. Well, a lot of people started thinking, man, that's not fair. Se agüitaron. Because it wasn't just, the amount of corn that I worked for. Well, if this guy, imagine the big, strong guys that can work from 8 to 8, and they're out in the aguantan, it's hot out there, and they're working hard, they're pushing that plow, and then there's this little weak guy who needs to take a break every 2 hours. And the big guy is thinking, why is it that at the end of the day, I get the same amount of corn to take back to my family that this little weak guy does? Not just the men. Now the ladies are saying, well, once I'm done cleaning my house, now I have to go help and clean this other guy's house. And I keep my house clean. That guy's such a pig. Well, no le importa. He doesn't really care, because he knows that on Tuesdays I'm going to come and clean it. So you start seeing the morale start going up. And so there was no incentive. At the end of the third year, bro, they were dying. It wasn't until Bradford saw what was happening, and he said, okay, well, everything's going to stay the same except for corn. Everyone's going to be granted a little parcel. It's going to be yours. And then everyone's going to be granted the opportunity to raise corn. When it came to the part where they were working, guess what? The weak people started becoming strong. The ones that were always claiming to be sick and I can't do it, agarraron fuerza. They started getting this strength all of a sudden, and they started working and working. So much so that at the end of the next year, they had enough corn to ship back to the old world. What happened? He clicked. He turned on the incentive. So, of course, healthcare, you can claim your rights all day long until you incentivize going to school. I go to school, and a lot of kids in my Sunday school class, for example, are going now to college because they know that's going to make them have better money and they're going to have a better life. That you turn on the incentive. Socialism is killing the incentive. ¿Pa qué me voy a matar? Lo sé.
So, what do you, as a congressional candidate, say to the millennial who just finished his four-year run at a university?
Yeah.
Is $150,000 in debt, and wasn't taught critical thinking in high school, so he has some useless degree. He or she has some useless degree that's hard to apply in the real world. And so now he's at home with his parents, and he can't get a job, and he has all this debt, and he hears Bernie Sanders talking about how college is a human right, and how we're going to erase all of your debt, and everybody's going to get to go to college for free. How do you address that millennial? Number one, are his grievances, are they justified? Was the system a vulture system that led him into that debt?
Yes and no.
And is the Bernie Sanders route to take, is that a just solution to that?
No. So yes and no, it was his fault, because yes, in the sense that he should have chosen a major that was going to be more useful. I mean, there is such thing as personal responsibility. No, in that society now is built in such a way that it coerces people that do not belong in college to go to college. There's lots of technical schools that you could go to. No. Man, there's welders that are making $70,000 a year. Why are you wasting your time in college if you know college is not for you, just to satisfy mom and dad? Go get a technical education, and you're going to be making some nice cash now and not 4 years from now. So in that sense, yes and no. For those that decide that they're going to go to college, then choose, be smart about it. Choose a degree that's going to be useful. Go become a teacher, get criminal law, and either go to law school afterwards, or there are some things that my brother, for example, he got a degree at Baylor University. Oh, great big school, in philosophy. Now I'm thinking, bro, you're about 4,000 years too late. There's no philosophers. So luckily he went on to PA school and he's doing fine now, but and it helps that he's got a good head on his shoulders, but just choose choose a little better. Now, to the second part of your question, is Bernie's plan wise? No, it's not wise. It's palatable because who doesn't want free stuff? Of course, people saying, I've got all this debt and someone's going to wipe it off. I just heard recently that it was, I think it was Chase Bank or some bank in Canada just went under. And it's an American bank. I think it's Chase, but I'm not sure. That tried to do some business in Canada a couple of years. It didn't work out. So they had to liquidate before they closed down all their Canadian things. What they ended up doing was canceling all the debt. They just canceled the debt. People in Canada were like, oh, this is awesome. Who wouldn't be awesome? Who wouldn't say that if your debt's canceled? But wait a minute, who's paying for it? When it comes to the government, who's paying for it? And so that's the problem I have with Bernie making all these promises, is because it's not free.
So here's where you and I have to make as free market capitalists, here's where you and I have to make a concession. We have not had free market capitalism in the pure sense here in the United States, maybe ever, but certainly since the antitrust laws. So what we've had here is a mixed economy. We've had a little bit of socialism, and we've had mostly capitalism.
If by socialism you're talking about I'm
talking about Medicare. I'm talking about Medicaid, Social Security,
the social net,
the social safety net, right? That's socialism,
yeah.
Right? So if we're looking at a spectrum, right, of government involvement in the market when it comes to the social safety net, we would have it at about a 30%, or at the 30 mark out of 100, right? What to you is, and that would include obviously Medicare and Medicaid, the VA. Yeah. It would include every other government program that there is, the WIC, yes, to help the needy. Where would you put that meter? In other words, how much government involvement in the market is going to be sufficient to help everybody, or are you of the mind that what we need is a purely capitalist system, laissez-faire?
No. I'm not gonna be able to put a number to it, but I would say as little as possible to take care of those that are truly in need, but don't make it so attractive that people that can actually work prefer not to work, to be on the system, on the dole.
So as you know, after, was it 1967? After the war on poverty, there was, obviously we started to ensure welfare for a lot of people, and there weren't any work requirements. Right, that's the way it started until it got reformed under the Bill Clinton administration, under Clinton and Gingrich. Right, yes, they reformed it, and then they put they added work requirements and
drug tests
and right. And so I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, we've had to concede that some socialism is okay. Because that's where we're at now. Because there is some socialism, right? The argument that the other side makes, and I'm talking about people like Bernie Sanders, AOC, to a large extent Elizabeth Warren. What the argument they make is that we don't want full socialism. All we want to do is take that meter at 30 and take it to 50. All we want to do is take that meter from 30, just expand the social safety net, right? Mm-hmm. And they want to do that in the healthcare sector. They want to do that in the education sector, and they want to do that for our infrastructure, right? They want government. Why, if they are bad ideas, why are they bad ideas? Why is it bad to take it that route?
Well, because you, in the same way that you can't be just a little bit pregnant, you either are or you're not. You can't force me to be a little bit generous, and then you can't steal from me and then ask me to be generous at least a little bit. When it comes to charity, and many of the charitable organizations are the ones that used to take care of what are now being taken care of by this safety net. Right. And so the reason it's bad is because of the basic principle. You are taking from someone who's working and giving it to someone who can work but chooses not to. I'm not talking about the disabled. My dad is in a wheelchair. He's been in a wheelchair for 30 years. He was a hard worker up until the time that he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so he paid into the system. Should he be part of the safety net? Absolutely. But I'm talking about the folks that can work and do not because it's not profitable.
Well, the reason why these ideas become so seductive is because the argument that they're making, and the same people that I aforementioned, is that we're not going to take anything from you. You in the middle class, you in the lower class. This is all coming from the top 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah,
right. That's what Bernie Sanders always says.
That's why it's attractive.
And that's why it's attractive to so many people, because they are able to work people into this envious lather about the top 1%, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And if they already have enough money for
they
a
can afford
lifetime,
it.
for their kids'
They're never
lifetime,
even going to notice
lifetime.
it.
So it's not going to hurt them. So why not? If you could take from them something that isn't going, the amount that isn't going to hurt them, to help veterans, and this is the case.
You see what you just said, or what they say is that they try to make it sound like, yeah, it's not such a good thing, but I'm doing something good with it.
Right, exactly.
And so,
but that's why I said it, because I know their arguments.
Because who would be against helping veterans? Who would be against helping puppies? Who doesn't? You know what I mean? It's the idea that as long as I'm doing something good with it, virtuous with it, then the means by which I receive, I take what I'm using this with. Then it must, in other words, the ends justify the means. My issue is that whether you're taking from me or the person that's making, Steve Jobs or whatever when he was still alive, the wealthiest people, you're still taking. And so Dinesh D'Souza, he's maybe most of your listeners have heard of him.
I know
he gives a real good example, and I like it a lot, because he talks about how when things are, you're going to be given, then you're going to go to a grocery store and you were going to take 4 bananas, and then he says, but if you're not going to pay for it, then I'll take 12. What's stopping me? So you show up to the cash register, and Dinesh says that, all right, so the guy who's going to charge you, or the owner of the grocery store, says, this guy's not going to pay for it. This third guy who's not even here, this fool that's not even going to check the receipt, he's going to pay for it. So what I was going to charge 25 cents per banana, now I'm charging $25 per banana. Y órale. So now this guy who's receiving this thing doesn't need all 12 bananas. He's only going to need 4. Se va, he's going to take all 12. And the guy who should have been charging $25 per banana is now charging $25 per banana. So that's the issue. When one goes down the road of socialism, these things that one should be grateful to receive now are all of a sudden entitlements, and I deserve it and I have a right. Wait a minute, who's paying for it?
So what you're saying is that it's human nature to always want more.
I should say it takes a lot of personal virtue and restraint to leave something that's free behind for someone else,
or to be content with what you have.
Yeah.
Andrew Yang, he's a candidate for the president. He has something called UBI. You've heard of it?
Yes, income, basic.
Yeah, it's called
universal basic income.
Because of the freedom dividend, he wants to give everybody $1,000 per month, just by default, by being an American. This is your money, and his argument is that automation and that jobs are we're trending towards a disaster as far as being able to secure work for everybody, right? Because if you're a truck driver, more than likely those jobs are going to be gone within the next 10 years.
Right.
If you work in factories, those jobs are disappearing right before our very eyes, right? Because of automation. And so the way that you're able to counter,
kind of compensate,
to compensate the number one, the demoralization that's going to do to people, and the
okay, keep going, but I got an issue with that one. Right
okay,
there.
so the demoralization that's going to do to people to lose their jobs, right? And the fact that some of these people have been working these jobs their entire life, and it's not like there was a thing back in the day that they used to tell people that lost their jobs in the factories to learn how to code. Right, and but these were 50-year-olds that were losing their job as if they're going to go back to college and learn how to code. Right, I mean, they could if we're to be theoretically, they could, but
no, but it's not very practical to ask a 70-year-old to go back to
right.
school.
And so what he's saying, or the argument that he makes, is that this is necessary to ensure a healthy society. Now, the argument that they make against him is that, okay, so it's 1,000 this year. But what's to stop that from saying what's to stop these same arguments being made 3 years down the road that 1,000 isn't enough? What about 1,500?
That goes back into the thing. It's like, wait a minute, I can get this for free. I don't need 4, but now I need 12.
Right.
Wait, you were gonna, if you had buy it, you would have bought only 4.
Right, and that's my point about human nature is that it's human nature to always want to see how much more you can get.
Yeah, and it's the issue I was taking up with the word demoralization, and I'm totally with you up to that point. And although I would say it's demoralizing to have to be on the government dole when you can work. That should be the motivator to get out of there. Besides that whole Yang idea is, again, taking from those. Why? Because he's not offering to take money out of his own pocket. Obviously, this guy must be super rich. He's going to give everyone $1,000. How much money? No. He means he's going to take it from people that have a lot more money. So Robin Hood idea, and to give it to those who don't. So. Oh, no, but he's going to take, say, $5,000 from my pocket, and then at the end, give me back $1,000. Well, brother, why don't you just take $4,000 from my pocket and stop making it seem like you're being nice and expect that I'm going to say thank you for your $1,000 that you just took $5,000 from me for. So it is the same idea that you're taking money from those that are working. Why should the capitalist keep the money? Why should they? Well, because they're the ones taking the risk.
Right.
They're the ones investing. The worker, the employee is still going to get paid the same amount of money. If the business goes down, he's not going to go say to the employees, "Hey, we're not doing so well. We're going to pay you half of your bill, half of your check this month." No, they're demanding the same, or they're walking, right?
Right.
So they're not willing to take the risk, but the capitalist is.
So when we talk about what is the case for capitalism, what is the case for? Look, we have status quo bias. I have status quo bias, right? I don't believe the capitalist system is perfect. Of course not, but perfect compared to what? Right? I mean, what are we comparing capitalism to? If it's socialism, in the history of socialism, then I don't think it's us, the capitalists, that have the explaining to do. I don't think it's us that are having to defend capitalism against the history of socialism. I mean,
that's right. And so, I mean, I talked to a lady earlier today. I told her that I'd be talking about socialism, especially with regard to millennials. Just have them live in a socialist state for 6 months. That'll cure them for the rest of their lives. Venezuela used to be the 4th wealthiest country in the world. The wealthiest country in Latin America.
Right.
Today, they're breaking into the zoos to eat their zebras. I mean, that's sad. They're leaving their country. It's because of socialism. And the list goes on and on. I talked about how people would be booed, they would be stoned if anyone were to declare that we should bring back slavery. What a dumb idea. And yet many people are crying for socialism, which is a sort of slavery, when you're asking the ones with the means to work for those without the means. And so,
so one person that's watching right now, his name is Eric Gomez. He has a question for you. He says,
what's up, Eric?
He says, people get free stuff here all the time. What's the difference?
I'd like to know a little bit more.
Yeah, can you please clarify the question, Eric?
I mean, I get free stuff. I used to get free stuff from my parents. Oh, but that's not a problem. I mean, there is a sense of socialism at my house. For example, if I work a lot of money, I mean, I work Monday through Friday. I make all this money. If I don't have kids yet, but if I had kids, they don't work, and yet they each get according to their need.
Right.
There is a form of socialism.
And so, something else also. I mean, let's talk about freedom. When it comes to free markets and capitalism that's the only economic system where you have the freedom to purchase what you want, to work where you want, to negotiate your wages to a certain extent. I mean, there's obviously limitations to these things, but the number one case that always gets made is look at Amazon. Why does Jeff Bezos need so much money? Right? The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. But if you look at Amazon as an example, he didn't get rich by pointing a gun to your head and tell you to buy his products. He engaged in you engage in voluntary transaction,
exactly,
mutual transactions, because you were free to do so, and you made him rich because
and
he had a good product.
Fool. You'd be a fool to be offered that much money and not take it. I'm not a big sports fan. I'll admit that here. I like little baseball, especially during the World Series. But man, these baseball players or these basketball players making all these millions of dollars, and I'm thinking doctors that are saving lives, they don't make that much money. So you're telling me entertainers, hey, I really don't think that entertaining me, bouncing a ball, and there's some skill there involved, obviously, that it's worth millions and millions of dollars. But if someone's offering you that much money to play basketball, I'd be the first to tell you, take the money.
Right.
Take it. So capitalism allows a system, or is a system in which the people determine what is valuable, and the smart ones are the ones that take advantage of it. Okay, well, this salt and pepper shaker weren't valuable yesterday. They were on sale for 50 cents, but now they're the in thing. I'm going to charge $10 for them, and I'm going to make a huge killing. It's up to you whether you think it's that valuable and you want to pay that much. And now I just made that profit. Why not? That's our system.
And so when somebody says, or when somebody would tell you that the rich are getting richer, right, and the poor are getting poorer, number one, is that true? Or that the gap between the wealthy and the middle class is growing? I mean, how do you make a case to say that, number one, that's a normal thing, right? I mean, how can I put it? That it's it comes with the territory.
Yeah, Jesus himself said, "The poor you will always have."
So, how do we respond as capitalists when they tell you, but why are you okay with the rich getting richer and them having hoarding so much money? I'm using the words they use.
Yeah.
And hoarding so much money, and everybody else is getting less and less. Number one, is that true? Is everybody else getting less and less? Like, what's the quality of life now in 2019 compared to their golden years, the 50s and the 60s?
I wish I had that statistic. I don't know it right offhand. My sense is that everyone is doing better than they used to. That even the poor in America are doing much better than the poor in Venezuela.
What's up, Joseph?
So there's some folks there was a friend who once, he was from India, that said that he had a friend when he was in India, that said, man, when I grow up, I'm going to the United States. Why? Finally, he asked him, why are you going to the United States? He said, I want to go to the place where even the poor people are fat. I mean, there's an abundance of food. There's an abundance of stuff that even the poor people are doing okay as compared to the people throughout the world. And I've had the great privilege of traveling, and I've seen people in the Syrian refugee camps in Jordan that are poor, brother. I mean, that is poverty. They're leaving war-torn Syria. And as we come into their little tents, they put out their mats and welcome us because these are the American doctors that are coming to see our children or whatever. And it's just amazing to live in this country when you have a chance to travel and come back here. You love what you have and you want to protect it. What is it that we're protecting? Man, we're protecting capitalism. We're protecting our ability to be so generous.
And this isn't to downplay the fact that people obviously struggle in life, and people obviously go through hard times. And the poverty rate here in Cameron County is up at around 32% in the ballpark. We can sit here and we can assign blame to the system. We can assign blame to the white guy. We can assign blame to whoever. But at the end of the day, when you live in a capitalist system, you have the ability to wake up every single morning and make a series of decisions in your day, throughout your day, that either at the end of it are going to help you or are going to hurt you. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line.
Yeah, there are some people throughout the world that could not wake up every morning and have free school like we can. Right. We can get up and actually go to school and actually work our tail off.
And how do you explain the fact that even the fact that we're privy to free public school, the dropout rate is still as high as it is, right? In other words, the priority on furthering ourselves through education, it just isn't there anymore. Or just isn't there. And I don't have the numbers of the dropout rates here in the Valley, but if the poverty rate is 32%, I imagine the dropout rates can be good, right? So at what point does personal responsibility have to kick in in a capitalist free society so that poverty isn't such a big issue? And how do we communicate that?
And it all starts at home. I think the fact that you can have some families where kids are not taught to do things that they can do for themselves, to do them for themselves. There's a sense of a nanny at home, and then they grow up and they want the government to be their nanny. So a major part is just the way children are brought up. And I teach a lot of millennials. And by teach, I mean I used to teach millennials in the university. But now I teach them in Sunday school, and I have a big relationship with lots of youngsters, and I've seen the way they think. It's this entitlement mentality, because someone has done work for them, except for those that were brought up in kind of lower economic social status, where they were forced to get up real early and do a lot of work. Man, those guys are excelling because of the work ethic. And so a lot of it has to do with just the way we're brought up.
My friend Dan Molina here has a comment that says he says nothing has changed. Raise pay, cool, but then you raise prices on everything. In other words, he's talking about inflation. Inflation kicks in, so basically everything just evens out. Same. So the poor are in the same spot. Free school, they ask for money every week for some new thing.
Well, I've been out of public school for a while, and I don't doubt that's the case. But I used to ask for $10, and that was a lot of money, like to go to a field trip or something. But my parents would give me $1 every morning, with which I could buy a Snickers bar and a can of Coke. $1 can't buy you anything nowadays. Miller Jordan.
Went to elementary school, though.
Oh, Dr. Cash.
You went to Dr. Cash?
Here in San Benito.
I went to Fred Booth.
I went
to Fred Booth, and across from Fred Booth, there was this, from what I hear, it's still there, but there was this like little mom and pop candy store right across from Fred Booth. And you used to be able to go there with 50 cents. I mean, keep in mind, I'm 33 years old. I was, fourth grade? I mean, you're looking at 94 maybe.
Yeah.
No, 93.
You're about 5 years younger than me. Okay.
50 cents would buy you an entire bag of candy.
Nice.
That's just what, 23, 24
Yeah,
years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That just came into my head.
Yeah, but no, you're right. And Dan's right. It is more expensive now to raise children. It is more expensive to just live life. And so while wages may have gone up, so has expense.
But here's what's gotten cheaper though, and you can fact check me on this. But household items that everybody needs have just gone down. The price has just gone down drastically. I'm talking about refrigerators. I'm talking about air conditioners. I'm talking about televisions. I'm talking about ovens, stoves, coffee machines. Everything that occupies a modern household. As far as appliances that we need that make our lives better. Since the 50s and 60s, those prices have just gone down dramatically.
Why? Why? That's a great question right now.
Well, since we're talking about it, tell them.
Because of capitalism, brother. First of all, it takes money to recover all your expenses of research and development. So refrigerators were a new stuff back in the 50s. Stoves and all this great new technology. Now you got all these other companies that don't have to spend on research and development. They're basically retroactively, how do you call it? When you take something apart and you rebuild it, you learn how it was done. And so now you got all these companies competing against each other for my business.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to go with the cheapest one. So then this guy goes down and this guy goes down. That is capitalism.
My friend Joseph just commented that the McAllen metro area high school graduation rate is 61.80.
The graduation rate. Man.
I know. So, you want to talk about why, I
wonder how much that's multifactorial in the sense that, or that there's some other issues that are not considered. For example, in the Rio Grande Valley, do we have so many kids that are
What's up, Jonathan?
Recently crossed over from Mexico or other Latin American countries that they find it so difficult that they enroll in school, but they find it so difficult to acclimate that they drop out. You see what I mean? And then maybe that's skewing the numbers. I don't know. I'm just saying maybe that's an issue. And that if that wasn't taken into account, it'd be more in line with other high schools or other regions. The folks that do these statistics, I wonder if they take that into account. I really don't know.
Something that is an interesting point, but I do agree with what you said that there are different reasons as to why these dropout rates persist, poverty. Let's talk real quick about the fatherless rate here in South Texas. Again, another ballpark figure for you. But the last time I checked, in Cameron County, the fatherless rate was up at around 35%, which basically means that 1 out of every 3 kids are growing up without a dad.
Yeah.
Now, can you make a technical case as to
Yeah.
what affects a children growing up without a father?
Oh yeah, the divorce rates are higher, the suicide rates are higher, the dropout rates are higher, the likelihood of committing violence against someone else is higher. As a matter of fact, there was an interesting study out of the Los Angeles Times that was published right after the last mass shooting, and it looked into some commonalities among mass shooters in the past, ever since Columbine. The number one commonality in all the mass shooters was fatherless homes.
I believe that.
And so, and that actually ties back into our conversation about capitalism, socialism, and the incentive to get up and go do things for yourself. I know some people that even with given the chance of having like a mother and a father in a holy matrimony and an actual family, they do not want to marry, because if I marry, then I won't have the benefits. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Instead of giving them the kids the great privilege, the great benefit, statistically, the benefit of having a mother and a father that are married in a single home because they don't want to lose a chequecito. They don't marry. And couples that are together and that are not married are more likely to separate.
So Dan Molina here says, I did none of those things that we mentioned because mama raised me right. Just because you don't have a father growing up doesn't mean a woman can't raise a man.
No, absolutely. You beat the odds, brother. I'm glad, and I pray that more people do that.
Obviously, we're not saying everybody that
Claro, of course not.
That is
It's a higher statistic. For example, Latinos are more likely to have heart disease, to have high blood pressure. That doesn't mean that all Latinos have high blood pressure or heart disease. There are genetic predispositions and things. So when we're talking about higher likelihood, that's all it is, just likelihood.
So let's tie this conversation back around, and maybe we can end it here. Have you heard of Daniel Patrick Moynihan?
Miss Wena. Yeah, I've heard the name.
So he worked under, I believe it was LBJ, and he was commissioned to do a study on poverty. It's called the Moynihan Report, mm-hmm. right? And basically, it was commissioned so that the Johnson administration could, I guess, figure out more or less how to enact the war on poverty, right?
Yeah.
And what they found was that there was a large amount of poverty in the black community. They studied the black community, and it was due to fatherless homes, right? And what they also found that after they instilled welfare, or after the war on poverty started, that up around that time, I know correlation is not causation, but the number of fatherless homes in the black community skyrocketed.
It went up. And
it went up, and they figured out it's because when you incentivize bad behavior, you get more of that bad behavior.
Claro.
In this case, the bad behavior being the fact that, well, if you don't need a man in the house, why are you going to put up with the shit, basically, right? And so that's basically what was going on. If you could make it on your own, because you're getting a little extra help.
Make it in quotes, right?
Right.
Because what does it mean to be make it, right?
Well,
you're just barely scraping by. Is that really what we should be incentivizing?
And it ties back into this whole, again, conversation about socialism, because that is socialism, right? That is socialism. Now, that's socialism on a small scale, right? Can you imagine what it would do at a large scale, right? So when you incentivize bad behaviors all across the board, right? And so,
or what you're doing is de-incentivizing good behavior. You're basically leading us back to our natural habits. It's the same thing we talked about earlier with Governor Bradford and his decision to say, you know what, I've got to turn something on, because when it is off, everyone's gonna basically just go for the easiest route. There's no incentive to work hard. I'm gonna do as little as possible. So I see it more as unincentivizing good work when you just give things away.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I guess, is there any last words that you would like to tell our audience about socialism versus capitalism?
And
especially how it relates to where the Democrat Party is trending.
Okay. Well,
remember, Rey Gonzalez is a Republican, and he's running against a Democrat, Filemon Vela. So We're talking about right now about the Democrat Party as a whole. And the reason we're talking about socialism, in case you missed it in the very beginning, is because the Democrat Party, one of its front runners is a socialist, right? He doesn't shy away from the name, a democratic socialist. And so we're having the conversation because we're wondering why socialism has become so appealing in the last 6-7 years. So there you go.
Yeah, so I would say that this should be important to you if you love your country. If you've been raised in a country that you now love, and as you travel the world, if God gives you a chance to go out and travel and you love coming back home to all your amenities, know that it's not because of socialism. It's because people stood up against socialism. You should also know that the newer generation, the millennials and Generation Z, are trending toward adopting socialism. And so, as we said a little while ago, some of the best teachers are parents. I'm assuming that many of our viewers are people our age, in the late 30s, 40s, people in their professional careers. They're having families. Man, this is a time to save our country. Do a good job with teaching your children the value of work, the value of enjoying the fruit of your labor, the sweat on your brow, because it's something that I think will have lasting effects on our country. Not just our region here in South Texas. Some of us think that we're in a little bubble, and in many ways we are, because our food is different, or even the way we say phrases is different. But these kids, man, they are going out, they're affecting the world. And if they can say their legacy from South Texas was that, hey, I may be this or that, but I work. My parents taught me how to work. That's avoiding disaster for our country, and our people here in South Texas would be very grateful if you did that.
Rey Gonzalez?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, brother.
It was a good conversation.
Yes, sir.
I want to implore everybody to go to raygonzalez.org.
Yes, sir.
And if you like what this man is saying, if you like his ideas, consider donating to his campaign. As you know, campaigns are expensive.
Yeah.
And without the kind of funds to be able to advertise, to be able to put programs like this out there so that you know that Filemon Vela isn't your only option, then consider donating to Rey Gonzalez. He's a genuine, honest, intellectual man, and I believe his ideas are the kind of change that South Texas needs to get out of this one-party rut that we're in. So join us. Let's figure it out right now. When is the next time that you can come back on?
Possibly next Friday.
Next Friday. So next Friday, we'll hopefully we'll set this up again, and we'll tackle another topic. Send me a message. Send Ray a message. Where can they reach you?
So on the website, raygonzalez.org, at the very bottom, there's a place where you can send a message. You can ask for a sign. You can donate there. But that'd be a great place to send me an email, and I get those emails directly, and I'll respond to you directly. A lot of folks just they don't want to be too public, but they say, hey, what is your position on this area, on immigration, on DACA, on all these different issues? I will not shy away from talking about issues directly. You may not like it, but at least you'll be refreshed by, wow, there's a guy running for office that's actually being upfront. I will share with you my positions. And
so, I mean, before, I don't want to leave them hanging, so just run through your positions real quick on DACA.
So DACA, these kids are here by no crime of their own. I will not impugn their parents' sin upon them. I think they are U.S. citizens, and the United States House of Representatives needs to get on the ball. The president has already agreed to sign the bill to make them citizens. House of Representatives. What other position?
Abortion.
I am totally pro-life.
Pro-life. Exceptions.
No exceptions.
Where do you think life begins?
Conception.
At conception. What does conception mean?
Conception is fertilization.
Fertilization. Okay, so look, these are the kind of topics that we want to get into in depth over the next few weeks. So like I said, if there is anything, Ray's going to talk about it. That's one of the things I like about Ray, is that when we started this entire thing, he basically told me nothing's off limits. Nothing's he's not afraid to shy away from any questions. And if you listen to at the very beginning, we had a couple of disagreements on the Trump impeachment situation, right? But that's what I like about this conversation, is that we can be honest with each other. I got my opinions, he has his, and at the end of the day, this is what this country is all about. This is what freedom of speech is all about, and this is what freedom of information is all about.
That's right.
So everybody that has been checking in with us, everybody that commented, everybody that is engaged and interested in these conversations, one easy way to help Ray is to just share this video.
Yep.
Share this video and have your
Please.
friends share it. If you're part of the Hidalgo County Republicans, Cameron County Republicans, the UTRGV Republicans, it's in our interest to get these ideas out there. So share the hell out of this video and make sure your friends see that there are some intelligent Republicans here in South Texas. So guys, thanks, man. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Adios. Oh, and a shout out to